Thank you to the record for inviting me over. I'm Vivian Browning. I'm the incumbent running for Anastasia Mosquito Control Seat 1 and running for re-election. I've learned quite a bit in my first 4 years or 3.5 years, and I feel like this experience would help me not to run for office, but to help the people. I mean, my goal is to help the people and the businesses and the pets, because mosquito control involves horses and dogs with heartworms. So I'm here to look out for the consensus building and what's best for the people. In my little brochure here, I have a list of things that I support, and I'll go over that with you. First, let me tell you a little bit about Vivian. I retired from education in the early 80s, and I'm a real estate broker for the past 31 years. But I've never given up giving back to the community, because once you're a school teacher and assistant principal and work with tax dollars, work with the public, work with the children and the parents, you find out what the community needs and expects of you. I have a master's degree from University of North Florida. I was in the charter class from there. I was in the charter class from FCCJ in '68. So I've been down here since 85, 86 when I bought some property. And then I've gotten involved. And one thing that I have done, and in this term in mosquito control, we led the community to getting services out in Bellona Beach, where we were bypassed by the bridge. There's always some big catalyst that causes people to volunteer and get to work. So in Bellona, it was the bridge moved north of our little commercial district out there, and we decided we were already blighted. What do we do? So we went about getting infrastructure and attracting a grocery store, which we needed very badly since we had to come into town for everything. So as far as what I've learned from that to help me in mosquito control is operating now on the same infrastructure it was operating on since the 1970s and 80s. The base station we're in now opened in 1974, and only a small part of the county was protected by mosquito control, because the way a special district works is that you have to, the citizens who want to be included in this district would have to be taxed for the service to provide the chemicals and the service. So from 1948 up until 2002, pretty much in the 40s and 50s and 60s, the control was along the coast. Anastasia Island down to Crescent Beach, Volano up to Ponte Vedra and Palm Valley. Then in the 80s and 90s, the interior came in, such as over to Julington Creek, and the last section to be included in service based on a vote. People had to, in these districts at an election, had to vote themselves in. Southwest came in, which are the big farm districts, Hastings, Flagler Estates, a lot of rural area. And so what happened after that, I've learned this by serving on the board, is that the commissioners at that time, many of them, the lady that I replaced was Ms. Hummel, who'd been on there 20 years, and there were 2 or 3 other board members. But they led up to this countywide expansion, and then what they felt like we needed to do is be a countywide location, which I agree to. So one of my planks of support is to have a consolidated site out at 16 and 95, where the land was purchased in 2005. This is, I picked this up here at the record. This is a hurricane guide. And if you notice on here, or you have one in your home, which you should, is that the property we own is right in the middle of the county, halfway between the north and the south and the east and west. This was done before I became a commissioner. From here, the trucks are halfway to where they need to be. where we are right now is over here on Anastasia Island, and the reason we're there is because that's where the district originated. This is in red, which is in the first hurricane zone, and that's one of the reasons I found out they put 95 through the middle of the county, is because there's a ridge that's 40 feet above sea level. One thing about mosquito control is that the few days after a tropical storm or a hurricane is when the larva starts growing and the mosquitoes start breeding, which can cause disease and at the least a nuisance, at the most deadly disease. So that's why I'm supporting that. Also we have a station up here in the Northwest. We have some land that hasn't been used in years out here in Ponte Vedra that I think we need to dispose of and get those tax dollars back to the citizens. And we're renting a space in Hastings, which I think can better be served from a consolidated site. So I've done my homework. The money is in the reserves. The previous commissioners had done this when the income ad valorem tax base was good, because that was before the recession. Now we've been held up on this by the recession and trying to see where the bottom is. In my opinion, I think we're there. I think the tax base should start moving up, and I do have some professional insight on that after being in real estate for 31 years. I think we need to move the base station out, or get our centralized facility out there and be ready for the next 60 years. We're a little over 60 years of mosquito control. And you might say, well, why is this a special district instead of why isn't the county doing that for me? Well, back in the 40s, some citizens got together, and there's about 15 special districts for mosquito control in the state. There's over 1,300 special districts: fire, water, CDDs, mosquito control. So what the people in Anastasia Island did is got a state permit to be a special district, permission, and either counties could not or would not in the 1940s. Perhaps they couldn't provide the service because of their tax base. I think our first year's budget in 1948-49 was a little over $8,000. So it was a very small, but I think the millage might have been 6 to 8 mills, so that was pretty high, but it was the houses were very inexpensive. But anyway, that's the main thing I'm pointing out. I do think that we need to stay a special district. I think we've protected your grandparents, we've protected your parents in mosquito control, being around since 1948. We are protecting you. We're protecting your children and your grandchildren and your children's children if we're given an opportunity. So I come from the old school, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm saying we need to stay a special district. What extra benefit do you get as a citizen is that our 5-member board, we hear concerns about chemicals being sprayed on in the neighborhoods. We help allay those fears. If we had to go into high gear and deal with a terrorist, mosquitoes can haul disease or almost anything that can attack citizens. So we would be totally focused on mosquito control if there was a major outbreak. It would not just be an embedded department within the county. So I feel like we need to stay a special district. We need to take our funds set aside, prepare this facility, consolidate, cut down on management costs. We need to look at less labor intensive. I was out at the airport this past, I believe it was Monday evening, and we have a leased helicopter come in and they did some spraying. I think it was covered here at the record. Is that one helicopter can do the work on one run, which is 2 to 3 hours, they told me, the work of 10 trucks and 10 sprayers. So looking at that, and as far as looking at new technology, I think there's a lot of property, if you look at Google Maps, that people there are no roads into, once you pass 95, we have a lot of forest, farms, and a lot of places without roads. But mosquitoes can travel up to 25 miles a day, so they can migrate into the neighborhoods from these forests and farms. So what I'm about is trying to, and I haven't supported any new tax increases. I feel like that fulfilling this mission of mosquito control to become a countywide provider and have a centralized facility would not cost any new taxes. We have the reserves, and it would, I think the property out at Anastasia Island could be used by, you know, the fire station out there floods every time it rains. It's right on where the pier is. It might get a sandstorm now with all that sand coming in, but and the property up at Ponte Vedra, I think that can be sold and bring in some tax dollars. And I think Marjorie Kennan Rawlings Elementary and Y is right there. There's a sewage treatment plant. So there are ways that government agencies could use that land, free up our tax dollars. We would increase our reserves. We would have a way to consolidate, although we have that money now, but increase our reserves. And then be in the position to take care of the citizens in the future. I think we went to 180,000 in 2010 population, and I just looked on the internet. I believe it's 195 in 11, so we're right there at the 200,000 mark. And with the 450th, if we have 4 million tourists a year, it's going to be accelerated. So we need to get on with it. The concern I have of people who oppose this consolidation, one, I know change brings about fear, and as you can see with my background in Volano or my background in Jacksonville and background in education, I am willing to tackle the big problems instead of just tread water. So I think the citizens deserve the best facility. This money needs to be working for them, and we shouldn't be hesitating about the moving forward. So those are my, hope you vote. I think I'm the only candidate with a color for a name, Brown, so remember, remember Vivian Browning for Mosquito Control Seat 1. And it's nonpartisan, and it's countywide.
Yep.
But,
Margaret?
This issue of consolidation versus regional stations or substations.
Right, right.
How does that work when you have an outbreak? Do you just take everything to one section of the county, or whatever number of trucks are needed, and then how's the rest of the region protected without substations?
Well, the way, on an average time, when we're just maintaining and surveillance and treatment, the employees stay within their district. There's 3 sections: the south, the mid part of the county, and then the northern part of the county in Ponte Vedra. Is that they can pull from different areas now. What I see is that if you have a business, which I'm a small business owner, and you had your employees go to remote locations, you're going to have to personally, if you own the business or you oversee it, like we have Dr. Ridiju as our director, world-known entomologist, you have to then visit those sites. You have to either through paperwork or physically going there, and then you have to have a manager at each site. So I think we can cut down in management and oversight, command and control, by having it in one location. Now I believe the county Road and Bridge operates off 16. They have one site countywide, so their trucks go out and come back doing road work. So we don't have the size of county like Monroe County in the Everglades, which you can't spray in the Everglades anyway. But it's we are compact enough that one site could handle all of it.
Is the Ponte Vedra location open and functioning now?
Closed.
Hastings?
Hastings, they operate, we now have the manager from Hastings handling the Northwest. but we still rent a facility from the city of Hastings, and it's one of their old fire stations.
And there's staff there?
There's 2 guys. But I do think, you know, after being a school administrator and all, it's good when you have management that you have command and control. You know, just I think you can better utilize staff, and to we do a lot of training so that we're ready. A mosquito control is something like the police and the fire department. Certainly, you know, I have great respect for our sheriff's office and our fire office, but you have to, you're in readiness, and then when the outbreak comes, you're prepared. You have the chemicals, the trucks, they understand what needs to be done, and there's no learning curve. But a lot of people don't understand that. As a taxpayer, you think you've got people, and sometimes the mosquitoes are not bothering us, but you've got to and we've reduced, over the 4 years I've been there, we have reduced down in employees. I think we're in the 20s, we used to be in the 30s. So we've worked very hard to get the budget down.
Does the centralization of to a location on 16 and 95, is that a cost justified project? Has the board, or have you done the math to seek cost justification for such a project?
Well, we've gone over that. You know, in my first 2 years in office, I took unbearable personal attacks for my position, which is not easy. I mean, stepping out and willing to serve your community is not always fun and easy or gratifying. Sure. So we've had, during that first 2 years, when we were closer to the time that we went countywide in 2002 and started serving the county in 03, we've had I would say probably, and I'm trying to think of his name, but anyway, we had University of Florida entomologists come in and look at our routes, look at where we are, and a 50-year mosquito control director from Indian River County came in, and they recommended move the station to 1695. So we had that study done. We had our auditor look at routes, trucks, and savings, and it appeared to me, as observing, that it was cost effective. Also, we've got old metal buildings. If you came out there, which you're welcome to, it's totally maxed out. We're across the street from a park, and a person's backyard backs up to our tank farm, or where we have 2,000 gallons of pesticides. So, in my opinion, as an educator and an assistant principal looking out for safety, we need to be. This is a rural site, and we have had a portion of it rezoned for public use, which is mosquito control. And a key thing is, we have the good housekeeping seal of approval out there, because we bought, or a former board bought 25 acres. And then where was the EOC in the early years? They were in the Wise potato chip factory on US 1, which is near the police department. If you remember, the EOC is near voter registration, right on US 1. If you raise up and look over, here's the intercoastal, and there will be, in my map here, if you look, it's in the first or second zone. So what did mosquito control do when the county needed an EOC site? They could get FEMA money to get a more secure site. As we gave 7 acres of that land to the county to build the EOC. And also, what did mosquito control get? They provided the road in, brought the utilities in, and we provided them with 7 acres. So we have done the olive branch to try to help, and that's the way it should be. This is tax dollars bought it, and they're protecting us in the bravest circumstances. And I think by us being out there, and we have a place at the table, not we, but the staff does. If there's a major hurricane, we would have staff in the EOC and at our facility. in order to be out on the roads immediately after the storm.
And for the folks, the EOC is like
Emergency Operations Center.
Right.
Yes, that is the state of the art out there. If people haven't seen it, it's I think 200 mile an hour wind velocity, and to me they're right on Interstate 95. And, you know, they could cut the fence and be on 95 if they had to. So I think we've been good stewards of our service, and we have not dropped the ball. Like last year in Duval County, the county provides, and I'm an old Duval County, raised in Duval County, and taught school there and was a realtor. But they had, I think, 2 deaths and many West Nile virus cases. And so I think we have justified the level of service. I think St. Johns County has the top school district in the state. It has quality of life tops and the per capita income. The average household, we've estimated, it pays about $12 a year for mosquito control in their ad valorem taxes. So it's a very small, and it's on the line items so that the citizens can see what's being spent on this. Our budget is a little under $3 million a year for 609 square miles of service. The question, I'll ask myself a question.
Ask yourself a question, Vivian. All right.
All right. This is my question: is that, as I said, you know, it's no fun with the board, and I've been consistently, when I've looked over the situation, and I said that what had gone on with the purchase of the land and the preparing, and during our first 2 years, we actually have a site designed by Reynolds Smith and Hills. So. And the staff was very supportive of this, and they have said, what do they need? Right now, our lab is in what is about like a kitchen, right now, like a kitchen in a house. So we prevention and discovery leads to saving lives. So so we have all that in place, but it's just those people on the board, and there's still people on the board who don't support it. I went to a forum last night and they said no. But for me, I've spent, I don't know, 30 minutes justifying my yes. And the no people just say, no, I'm not for it. Why is the no?
If you build a new facility on 16,
right.
16, what would you do with the old facility?
Surplus the land. And
does that mean sell it?
Yes. I mean, I would be in favor of that, but again, a lot of people think, I guess they don't think, anyway, they think because I'm in real estate that that's my motive. Not, I'm saying the school system or the sewage treatment plant, Ponte Vedra is going to need more of both. They're going to need more classrooms, and they're going to need somewhere to treat the sewage. Is this, I don't know if y'all been to this place, but it's Mosquito Control Road, which sounds like an island name, right next to Marjorie Kennan Rawlings. When they tell the parents, take the kids to the Y, they say turn on Mosquito Control Road. I think it should be Marjorie Kennan Rawlings Drive. I think it should be something less, but we haven't been there in many years, and none of the years that I've been a board member.
Have you seen the area?
I go to it, it's locked. They have a metal building there. They used to have a pole barn from the 60s because Ponte Vedra, it went the base station in Anastasia and then the Ponte Vedra 3 acres. Those were the 2 sites, and Anastasia covered towards Crescent Beach, and then Ponte Vedra covered up there, and I guess Bologna got included on the trips back into.
So they have a pole barn? Or
they took it out, we took it out, because we had to do some mitigation. What people used to do is change oil if they spilled a little, okay, but we are in the mitigation, but it's very minor, and we're going through that.
The reason I asked on the cost justification, I don't know what the costs are to move out there. You've already purchased the property.
Right.
So the cost would be in the design and construction of a building. But if you were to sell the Ponte Vedra property, and if you were to sell the Anastasia Island property, and close down the Hastings and operate everything out of this, I was just curious of what that pro forma plus minus dollars would look like. It's possible that it could pay for itself. That was really my question.
we've gotten estimates back when we were in building design before that stopped, that the building and the site prep and the whole facility out there would be around the $2.5 million mark, which is about one house in Ponte Vedra. It's that we're not dealing with a huge budget. I just saw something that said $40 million, anyway, some huge amount, or like the radio sets for the county, $25 million. We're dealing with 10% of that. We're on a very, for what we do, life and death and nuisance, we're on a small budget. But anyway, if we have before tomorrow night, 6 o'clock and we have a line item to try to get an appraisal on Ponte Vedra. A gentleman came before our board last month, and he wants to do like a croquet area. But I just hate, as an old teacher, to say that land go out to private ownership. Why not try to keep it in public use? Because I think it'll be needed. We've got to think 40 and 50 years into the future. What we've done in Volano, the infrastructure and that grocery store, we've been there 80 years. I think we're 80 years, and we can be, it'll look like, the Henry Flagler buildings are 100 years old. So I think that we're in good shape now going forth for 80 to 100 years. I think in mosquito control, if we can turn this corner and get this facility built for the people, for their protection and pleasure and life, quality of life, on the nuisance, that we would be good for many years to come. And I think at least half of what it would cost to build a new facility would come from disposal of these properties not being used. It's not any good for us to sit on vacant property in case we need to use it. Some people have talked about why we might need Ponte Vedra if Nocatee cranks up, although our Northwest station and or this 16 is closer than going back from Nocatee to Ponte Vedra in my case. The bridge over the Palm Valley Bridge is only 2 lanes. So anyway, I think that land in Ponte Vedra, I would oppose putting pesticides in trucks and heavy trucks by the school and by the Y, and by there's a whole neighborhood there. I think it's the wrong place. It could have been the right place in the 1960s, but it's the wrong place now.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the role of the board and your thoughts on the communication issue. Simply because we know it's very important as part of what the district does, educate, particularly in the schools for kids, and to drain the water and knowledge of what the threat really is. Can you speak a little bit about what you believe that the district should be doing, is doing? Okay,
I've observed there, and we've had a couple of education staff members to do the educational programs, and what they're doing, and I think is very good, is they do a mosquito component within the science classes and go into the schools, and the teachers allow the staff person to come in and do the presentation. We also have out on our website and all our education, but one thing that I haven't seen that I've asked for is why not go like North Shore Improvement. It was our way that we were able to bring the business, the residents, and the county together to get our improvements in Volano. Why not educate the adults, not just the kids? The kids are good because it's fun and it's interesting how a larva becomes a mosquito, and that you take that picture and you see the blood in the body of the mosquito. I mean, that's very interesting to kids. But the adults can remember to turn the flower pot over and get the water out of it before they grow their own set of mosquitoes on their own property. And we have to have permission to go on private properties. So some of the responsibility for mosquito control lies within the people themselves and their own property.
So you're talking about public forum type,
right? Or
programs to community groups like you're talking about.
Or have a module that, say, a 30-minute talk, and then get invited to these. There's probably 40.
You haven't done that?
I put them in touch with the Civic Roundtable. And the civic roundtable, but the people have to be willing. You can lead a horse to water, hopefully without triple E, but you can't make them drink. I have taken the education director to the civic roundtable and introduced them with their cards. But I think that if you're watching and you're a civic roundtable direct, or you're a HOA, or you're a civic group, this is one way that you can bring real helpful information to your people.
Good.
Money.
Money.
Everything takes money, and when we've been talking to other candidates, they're talking about wonderful things.
Right.
They say, but you know, it takes money.
Right.
And you can't take everything out of reserves. So
Right.
where do you get the money for? Is the building? I've forgotten. Is the building covered in reserve money, or?
Yes, it is. We have. We're working on our budget now, and you know we have to come up with our millage, which we've been at like 0.01325. I'd have to check that, but we've been very low millage. But the money was there. I went back and looked in 2001, 2, 3, and 4. That's when the ad valorem tax base was expanding. And I think if you looked at when did the county decide to build its new county office on San Sebastian as the ad valorem tax base, you would put I was noticing that you'd put the millage at this, and then it would throw off more cash. You estimated what the millage was going to bring in to fit your budget, and it would exceed that. And so that, you know, we kept coasting down, trying to get as low as possible because, you know, to stay close to our budget. But this, the people before me, the Mary Willises and Miss Hummells and those people and the directors back then, they were, we can't bond and we can't borrow in mosquito control. So you can't, so there's no, you have to have the money in the bank.
You can't bond?
The money's in the bank.
Is that a state law?
I believe so. I think it's, or it might be part of our state statute, but the money has to be there. So we've got enough. We've got, say, $3 million in reserve. We're estimating the building at 2.5. You know, in my opinion, the Ponte Vedra property, if the state or the county wants it, it probably would bring less, but then it keeps it in public hands, which I support. You know, between $1 million and $1.5 million. So.
Interesting. Never knew that.
But I have really put some thought. I mean, and that's the people who oppose this. I think the candidates who are running against me and some of the other candidates, they haven't done the homework to know how all this fits together. So you can say no, and we'll sit here and now this is what happened last night at the forum. I said, how many of you in the audience are living or working in the same building since 1974? And nobody raised their hands, because I don't live in the same place I lived in 1974. My office is not in the same place, but we're operating as a small, where we covered maybe 50 square miles. We're operating our facility in 600 square miles, although we have satellites. So that tells you that that small space, couple of acres out off Pope Road and Old Beach Road, has lived its course. And let me mention this. What if a major hurricane comes and the Volano Bridge will close at about 45 miles an hour, far below a hurricane winds. They close the bridge on account of the wind velocity up there. They'll do the 312 bridge the same. So it's possible that, and our trucks now go to the fairgrounds, so we're split up. And a lot of the county trucks go to the fairgrounds for waiting out the storm because it's out of the flood zone. But if out there on 16 and 95, we could have our trucks with us, the EOC for a command post, and then we could be out there. As soon as they started cutting the trees off the roads, we would be there. But we could be split up from our base station in less than hurricane force winds. And I see that because I'm a coastal person. I've lived Atlantic Beach, Neptune, South Jacks Beach through all the years. Volano. I see it as a danger. Yeah, that's another reason we need to be out there.
Okay, and this is not a question that an incumbent likes to answer in an re-election years, but at some point, you think you need somebody to come in and study whether your millage, I mean, whether your millage is the correct millage for the growth in the county, and not the growth, but the density growing.
Right, the population growth.
Expanding there.
Well, since we've had this reserve, which, you know, I'm from an old farm family too. I try to draw on my previous experience, but you don't eat the seeds that you're going to plant next year. Because in the off season, if you get hungry and you eat the peas and butter beans, and it comes time to plant, you eat them. You've eaten them. So I have been observing, and we've been we know people are hurting, but the taxpayers in the county have their property's been devalued, which in my 30-something years in real estate, this is the most devastating part of it, is that their taxes are going down whether the millage changed or not. So us keeping the millage the same, they get a tax decrease. And if you say, hello to the record here, and I told y'all I'm an old paper girl. My parents and I had a Times Union route from the time I was 10 to 22. We had a morning paper route. Is that if you raise that 1/10 of 100%, then the headline's going to be, we raise property taxes. So we have been maintaining, but our income off of our millage has been around $2.2 million, and our budget is about $2.9 million. So we have used some reserves in order to bridge through this recession, not to negatively impact. But I do think with population growth, and I feel like we've bottomed out as far as devaluation, that I think there will be a time when the property tax value will start bringing in more revenue without us having to raise taxes.
You mentioned on your card that you want to save tax dollars by using less labor-intensive practices. Could you expand that?
Okay, good. Well, right now I think we have a good situation, and that is that we have 2 contracts with air mosquito control service. We have a small provider who can do, and they're the ones who came in these last few days after these tropical storms.
Yes.
They do small acreage. And then we have a large provider who could actually be, and I heard someone say last night, well, FEMA can come in and spray. I don't think FEMA has any helicopters. They don't have any planes. They contract out. But basically what I learned when I came into mosquito control is that you provide the service, and very quickly you ask for FEMA reimbursement. So if we really had a major hurricane hit, and I was around in Dora in '64, I lived in Jacksonville, is that if we had a major hit like Homestead with Andrew or something, that FEMA, not only regarding mosquitoes, but all the other stuff they would have to do to help the people, is that they would reimburse our district with federal money for this devastation. But if it's a nuisance or we have a small outbreak because of a tropical storm, I don't believe we get funded. I think we've been very tight on our budget, reduced staff. Even though we have these reserves, we've tried to stay close on kind of people are losing their homes and they can't afford to pay the taxes, their bills. So we're trying to keep it very low.
Now the aerial spraying done the other night, was that covered out of reserves, or was that FEMA money?
Well, we won't know. I mean, that had to be ordered on the spot. So we have a monthly meeting, so we'll have a meeting tomorrow night to be advised. Now I'll go back to a lot of people. I'm not in favor of buying a helicopter. I'll repeat that. I'm not in favor of buying a helicopter. I'm in favor of the use of aerial spraying, because I think, and we have excellent staff. I mean, who would walk in a snake-pitted marsh and stand there and let mosquitoes bite your arm. I mean, I don't think I could do it, and I haven't done it but I've been out there in the field and I've ridden some of the routes and all. But there will be attrition over time, you know, in the next few years. But at this crossroads where you have these people retiring, why not look at efficiency? And we're doing it the same way they did it in the 1940s. Put the chemicals on a truck, send a person out there, and let them try to protect, and they do protect the citizens. But I'm not in favor of purchasing. The reason I'm not is because once you buy a helicopter, you have to have a repair person, a mechanic, and the mechanic can't be the pilot, so you have to have two. And there are seasons of the year you don't use it. But I am in favor, and I've reached out, which hasn't worked out. We have a Bell helicopter or some type. I'm not big on the type, but the police, the sheriff's office has a helicopter. For about $60,000, you can belly fit a sprayer and use the sheriff's helicopter. And they do that in Leon County. And I visited there when we've had a meeting over there, I guess on legislative days or whatever, is that the sheriff's office uses it for surveillance and all and catching the mean people. And then occasionally when they need to have a sprayer, they come over and pick it up, and the employees from the mosquito control district load the chemicals in it.
Interesting.
They have night goggles and all that. So I believe, I'm a taxpayer paying one tax bill. I'd like to see that used, because I don't think the sheriff's office, I mean, I know they're on duty every day, but I don't know that their helicopter is in use all the time, that we could use that. So I'm willing to start with baby steps and to keep the cost low. I believe in aerial spraying and protection and surveillance, but if I've had to choose, I would choose getting this base station right for the next 60 years.
Okay.
And again, I'd say the people who are now, if they look back, the candidates now, if they look back to see what all this led up to, 15 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, 100 square miles, now 600 square miles, and they saw the money was put aside, the land was bought, and then all they can say is, no, I'm not in favor of it. Well, are you protecting the people? Are you thinking, forward thinking? Or are you just coasting? That's my concern, is that people get elected, and then it's a do-nothing, like a do-nothing Congress. I just don't want to be that. I want to say, what are the big problems, and let's tackle them.
Cool. All right. You get to close us out.
Okay.
If you have a closing statement, you're welcome to it. Thank you, Vivian.
Well, I've served 4 years, and I'm willing to serve 4 more years, but I am going to stand up and be counted. I'm not running for the job. I'm running to help the people of St. Johns County and do what I've observed and what I think would best protect us going forward and save money. Because if you keep driving the same car you're driving since the 1970s, you're going to be broke down on the side of the road. So I believe in getting this new facility, consolidating, and being ready for the next 60 years of mosquito control. Thank you. And don't forget to vote for Vivian Browning. We were at the bottom of the ballot.
That's right.
Vivian Browning for seat 1. Yeah, we're probably on the back of the ballot. Thank you.